All right, so you would think by now that I charged my camera battery, the mic battery for my camera, and I didn't. So here we are again recording the intro kind of sideways. But anyways, none of that matters. Today we're going to be going over how to make R&B beats. Every time I say that in a tutorial, it's a hit or miss if I'm going to say it correctly. One of my favorite genres, hands down. You guys know that if you've watched my channel. I really don't have much more to say. Let's go. All right, so before we get into breaking everything down, let's just hear the full beat. The main thing I went for was sound selection on this. So if we go into Keyscape, I'm going to show you what I used, but I adjusted the settings. So you'll see that if you look at like when you open it just by itself, I've adjusted things. So color shift is turned all the way down. I brought the reverb up more, shimmers down. Then on the performance, the release noise is down, pedal noise is down, velocity sensitivity is up. And then inside of the EQ, I actually didn't denoise it, which I should have done. Usually I have this on medium, so I definitely adjust those so that I can get this real nice dark piano. Just something real dreamy, right? So you'll see the chord progression's super simple, nothing too crazy, using bigger chords, 7th and 9th chords, and then we have a small little melody over here. But let's go ahead and break this down. So let me just show you what I did. If I were to go over here and pretty much recreate kind of what I did, I took root notes and I built out. So I skip every other note and I just created some simple triads, right? And then what you'll see is on some of these, I'm using the 9th or the 11th, or I'm using an octave of another. So for example, this G right here, I definitely got to put my glasses on. This G right here is brought up 1 octave. So we duplicated this, brought this up an octave here. Actually bring this up so you can actually see what's like really going on. So it matches up. And then I took the root notes of the chord progression and I brought them down 1 octave. So these chords over here are still triads, but you know, the root notes are inverted down. So all I do for that is hold control, select them, and then control down arrow. And then you'll see that over here, the F sharp gets duplicated and brought up as well. And then for this last chord, you'll see that I built out the 9th chord of it. So if we bring this back up, we have the simple triad, right? We have the 1, the 3, and the 5, and then we can add the 7 here, and then we can add the 9. And I got rid of the 7th. So honestly, my music theory isn't good enough to tell you if that's still a 9th chord without the 7th, but I am adding the 9th to the triad form of the chord. I don't know if the 7th has to be there. Someone in the comment can let me know down below. And then after that, you'll see that we have pretty much the exact chord progression I created. And then over here, all I did was bring this into about here. I took smaller notes and I went from here, and then I went back up to E, and that blended in nicely so that it can repeat back into the chord progression. And then after that, that gets ran into a little bit of EQ that's cutting out a lot of that low end. And then I just took out some of the high end of it. And what that did was kind of tuck the piano back, which fits with the rest of the track. So that actually wasn't done while I was like just creating the piano. Obviously, when I show you the mixer effects, most of these were done after the fact, except for the vocal. So after that, I went ahead and I just got this simple pad. I'll show you. This is actually one of my favorite pads right now for Omnisphere, from Omnisphere, to kind of add like a nice texture. So here it is. So it's this pad right here. And then that layered with the piano sounds really good. It just adds a nice little texture to it. So the effect processing on that is an EQ cutting out a little bit of low end, a little bit of high end again to tuck that back as well. And that was done when I was mixing the beat, not during. Now on to the vocal that I added. So this, you guys know that I always add processing to arcade vocals beforehand. Like sometimes I won't even load the preset. I drop it into a mixer track, and then you're always going to see some type of EQ, maybe not this drastic where I'm just really utilizing the mid-range, and then a big reverb and some stereo imaging to kind of widen it out. So let me show you the vocal, and I'll show you where I got it from in arcade. So what I do for this is just make sure obviously I'm in the correct key. And then I usually use something from Hooked. I'll try to find if they've dropped anything new, and I'll mess around inside of the actual engines of it. The vocal that I used for this was this right here. So that was the first vocal I added. Without the processing, here's what it sounds like. Doesn't sound too good, especially with the rest of what's going on in this beat so far. So that's kind of why I always load up my effect processing first before I even start playing the arcade vocals, because depending on what it is, you'll see that I got a lot of inspiration by loading up my processing first. And then when I actually found this phrase, here's what it sounded like. It already sounded good. So that was that one. And then we have another arcade over here. Arcade's like my go-to for this. After I get a nice chord progression down, maybe add a lead or a pad, I go straight to vocals. So this is the second one. This is very common. This was released a long time ago inside Distant Voices. But sometimes you find something new that you didn't use, or you process it differently. And here's what this sounds like. And here's by itself. So something real simple for the second phrase, because I didn't want to have the other vocal repeat, but here it is without processing. Let's go ahead and play it. That sounds really good, but that would interfere with the vocal, and I like to tuck them back so the artist vocal can still be up front and it's not distracting, but you hear a nice vocal in the back as like an ambience. So the sub used is sub 1 from my separated Omnisphere bank. So for this, all I did was follow the root notes of the chord progression, and there's actually nothing on this channel for the mixer. So that added in just adds a nice little touch to it. It kind of brings up a sub underneath, but I didn't want to go too crazy with it. I just wanted it to fill out the low end. So let's play that in context with everything else. So this already sounds really good. Now all we needed to do was add some percussion and some drums. But before I go over those, we'll go over here to this section where you see this guitar. So this is actually a guitar one shot from my resupply drum kit. And here it is right here, and then routed into a little bit of effects that you see here. But let's hear it without the effects first. And I'll turn it up real quick. So that's how it sounds on its own with nothing on it. If you dragged and dropped it in and just used it, it is a one shot, like I said, that's included in the resupply kit as an extra. So with the effects on, this is what this sounds like now. It's tucked in the back, sounds really good. So now we can get into the drums. The drums are super simple if we just heard the kick and the percussion that's going on. Both of these right here, you'll see perk 5 and kick 7 are from my resupply drum kit. And then this other percussion right here is from a beat plug drum kit. But these two that I'm gonna solo right now, you'll hear that it's a super simple pattern. Like I don't even have to really explain it. So there's no hi-hats, nothing else. And then we add in this percussion and you'll see that it changes. So if we go into the percussion, you'll see there's just a little bit of velocity moves happening on certain notes. But for the most part, it's kind of just like a nice little swing that gets added in. And for this, really, I just go off feeling. I'll mess around on the MIDI keyboard or I'll type it in and just kind of find a groove in between that simple kick and rim pattern that sounds really good. So for the perk 5 one, that's like a rim shot, I took out a lot of high end from it, and then I added a pretty big reverb to it. And then the kick doesn't have anything, I don't believe. Actually, I think I took a lot of high end out of the kick too. Yeah, so I kind of tucked the kick back a little bit. I wanted it just to kind of be like a thump. I didn't want it to be too up front, but just have like a nice, soft, hard hitting kick that doesn't really make sense, but you can hear what I'm talking about. And then for the percussion, This is the beat plug percussion one. Where's that at? Right here. It just has a pretty big reverb on it. And then as far as arrangement goes, you'll see this is the intro. So I have a 4-bar intro over here, and then it goes into a part where it kind of be like a pre-chorus, but it's still part of the intro. I just added in that percussion and the sub bass, and then it drops into the hook, and then we drop into a verse right here, a 16-bar, back into an 8-bar hook, then a 16-bar verse again, hook, and then the outro. I like to always put 2 verses in because the artist can cut the verse out. Like if they wanted to just end the song right here, right, they can just cut this out. Maybe they wanted a shorter song, and then it would just be intro, hook here, verse, and then a hook again with the outro. But just in case they want 2, I make sure to add 2. Really depends who I'm sending the beat to. But anyways, kind of side notes for those. Again, the main key points for this are nice chord progressions, some pretty simple drums, and just getting like a nice dark vibe to it, making it sound pretty sad and not overdoing it with melodies so that the vocal can really stand out and be the last melody that the beat actually needs to make it a full song. So let's hear the full beat now. So in the description of this video, there'll be a link to the full beat. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like this video, leave a thumbs up. You guys can follow me on all social medias at LifestyleDidIt. Make sure to hit my site, lifestyledidit.com, for everything else. Other than that, subscribe to your boy, push notifications. Thanks.